Yep, we're on.
Good morning. It's 9 a.m. Monday, March 20, 2023. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is discussion of possible action to approve claims dated March 20, 2023 in the amount of $370,879.31.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nathan, second by Jeff. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next is items with County Engineer Brian Horowski. First is discussion of possible action to approve various utility permits. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. We have one utility permit today. It is from Muscatine Power and Water of Muscatine, Iowa. They are requesting to bore 2-inch interduct with fiber optic cable in it along Old Highway 61. So down there by the airport, south of where Fruitland Road comes out, that little spur there. Yeah, so that's what they're requesting.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by, who's had the second, Danny or Kurt? Okay, second by Kurt. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. You have anything else for us this morning, Brian?
Nope.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Next is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the March 13, 2023 regular meeting and March 14, 2023 special meeting.
I'll move the approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And a
I said
second
when
by
do it, I
Kurt.
wasn't there, so.
I knew what was going on there. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Correspondence. Jeff, you got anything?
I had a call from James Booser on the signs, uncontrolled intersections. I had a couple emails on 245th, one from Matt Storm, one from Dusty Buffington, or two. And then I also had a letter, email from the Community Foundation. I see we've got something on the agenda to talk about that, so I'll discuss what that was about later. That's it.
Okay, Nathan?
With the exception of that last email, I had the same.
Okay,
Nope, well, yeah, go ahead.
all right. I had two calls from two different residents in regard to
I think I did, I may have
the east end of 140th Street by Taylor there. And they both callers told the same story. They said, Scott, you gotta get somebody out here to look at this. He said, there's big mounds of dirt. One's right on the south side of the road, just off the travel section. And he said, the other mound is right in literally the travel section of the north portion of the road. And I said, I'll run out and take a look at it, because sometimes you never know what you might see. And so I ran out in the morning and I looked at that. And I came from the east, heading west on 140th. And you could see it for several hundred yards up ahead. And I got up there and stopped and looked at it and got out and looked, and the holes were, I don't know if you could have rolled a bowling ball down in each of them, but it would have been very close to being able to just, that's how big they were. And the guys told me, both guys told me that there was nothing there the day before. This had happened overnight. And so I looked at the tracks in that sugar sand that was there, and it looked to me like had a badger that was making had a little nighttime activity going on there, and he'd done a tremendous amount of work. And I called Brian and I told him what the situation was at hand, and he said that he'd send somebody out. You got that taken care of, Brian? That was that was about as much destruction as I've seen overnight. You know, that badger dug right down through that gravel, you know, or up through it, whichever direction he came, you know. But anyway, that's all I had for correspondence. Danny?
I had several calls and emails from residents on about 245th, and I had a call from a resident on those uncontrolled intersections, and that's all I had.
Okay, Kurt?
I had all of the same, calls that the rest of the guys had here on the signs and the ridge on
Okay.
245.
Very good. Committee reports, Jeff?
I had no committee reports last week.
Nathan? None? I had, Riverbend Transit on Wednesday the 15th, and that's all that I had. Danny?
On 3/13, I had Chamber of Commerce meeting, afternoon of the 13th, levy update with Rich Dryer, and on 14th, I had housing task groups with the housing committee. That's all I had.
Okay. Kurt?
Yeah, on the 13th, I also met with Rich Dwyer on the levy update.
That it? Okay. Very good. Next is, item with the administration office. First is discussion of possible decision regarding granting Supervisor Mather blanket authorization to sign letters of support on behalf of the Board of Supervisors for grant applications prepared, submitted by the community grant writer, as long as they do not commit any county dollars.
This was something I asked Nancy to put on for discussion. I got an email last week, I think I mentioned it, from the Community Foundation. Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day, someday, and, you know, they had a grant that was due, had to go in on Thursday, which I thought was kind of odd that you'd be working on submitting a grant, and then, and they wanted to have a letter of support from the Board of Supervisors. I told them that I could not sign that because I can't speak for the whole board, I'm only one member, I don't have the authorization. And I said we wouldn't have time to convene a meeting, do the public notice and all that to get it done. So, this was just a letter of support. It required no financial commitment, no resource commitment by the board. I don't know how often that comes up. I hadn't had that conversation, but I thought, you know, if those situations came up, would that be something this board would want to authorize our representative to do, not do? I don't see a lot of harm in that, as long as it's not committing county resources of any manner, you know, for that grant, so.
And I think that went sideways a little bit because I was on vacation. I probably didn't know who to reach out to.
Yeah,
So, yeah, on the obviously would bring anything back to the board to review. Yeah.
yeah, I would imagine, you know, just as a course of business, you know, we meet every week. So there, if they gave you even timely, letter of support requests, there's no reason you couldn't bring one to the board. It's like, and I just don't know how often you'd be working on a grant. I don't know if it's I haven't been involved with that grant writer position or not. I just thought we should discuss it and decide what the board wanted to do.
I think it'd be fairly infrequent. We're only doing, you know, there's only probably a couple going at any given time. So.
Do you think we need to do this, or should we just not do it?
I think the likelihood of this coming up again, it might come up again once or twice per year, just the way schedules work. I don't see a huge need to do it, but I don't see any harm in doing it either, so, yeah.
Opinions? I don't know.
We could also do it subject to ratification by the board, I mean, kind of a provisional thing, I mean, whatever makes you guys comfortable. It's not a real high value issue for me one way or the other.
It's not really a high value issue, and I don't think it'll come up often, but I'd like to be engaged with it before we decide.
Okay, so I think we just let it dry, let
That's
it
fine.
die, and they can bring it. And,
Excuse me.
yeah, I just wouldn't think that they couldn't give a week's notice. It's
Well, and I'll let her know,
Yeah.
just, yeah,
Yeah, I'd sent a note to Charlotte and said, I can't sign it.
we can't.
Said I have to bring it before the board, we have to publish 48 hours before a meeting for public notice, and it
So if we were
can't
gonna,
happen in the timeline.
would Nancy, just administratively, would you wanna have like that by end of the day Thursday? Would that give you enough time if we get notice of that? Is that-
Typically, agenda doesn't go out until Friday afternoon. So,
Yeah, but I don't want them saying,
Yeah,
2:00 on a Friday. So
but
how
yeah,
about,
certainly the end of the day Thursday, we're able to get it on
why
the
don't we do
agenda
that
for
then?
Monday.
Alright, I'll let her know, thanks.
Okay. Anything other, Nancy?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Last week, there was a recommendation made by the county attorney in regard to, setting up a committee, for the, issue on the 245th Bridge. And per our discussion of last week's meeting, I'm making the following appointments to a committee to gather and summarize information on the various possible resolutions to the current 245th Street Bridge status. And on that committee will be myself as a chair. I've appointed Kurt because as the board member representing the district the bridge is located in, County Attorney Jim Berry, County Engineer Brian Horowski, Administrative Services Director Nancy Schreiber, and Planning and Zoning Administrator Eric Furness. Those will be the people that will sit on this committee, and we'll work for that going forward. Okay? Next is receive information from county employees. Do I have any county employees that would wish to address the board at this time? Seeing none. Receive comments from the public. Do I have anyone from the public that would like to address the board at this time? Step to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Speak up for us if
We
you would,
got you.
please.
Okay. My name is Kimberly Carson, and I'm a resident at 1113 Colton Street in Columbus Junction, and a property owner at 2440 Edgewater Road, Conesville. In 1987, my husband Jerry, who's sitting here, and I know y'all have seen him before, we purchased our first home from George and Irma Trigo at 2446 Edgewater Road. My parents and Jerry and I, we worked on our first home together, and we made the cabin, and it was a very rustic cabin, our home. In 1990, prior to our daughter being born, our first child, we added a 2-story addition to that to make the cabin / home big enough for our growing family. Subsequently, we had two more children that we brought in to the world at this cabin. While we were there for our 12 years, we had mail delivered, we had LP delivered, we had the school bus come down and pick up our 3 kids, as well as 2 other neighbors that were down there. So it was a bustling place. During the flood of 2008, as we all know, it was devastating down at Edgewater. Our cabin took on 5 foot. It was above our mantle. The ducks that were up there floated nicely through the house. Our glass lanterns, they floated nicely to the floor. They didn't break. But anyway, it was devastating, the mud and everything. So we spent 4 years working on that house under guidance of the zoning committee, FEMA, to raise that house to appropriate levels. And we gutted it, we took the drywall off, made it so that the mold was no longer there. So we really got it ready, and we took 4 years to do that. So in 2012, we came back to that place, and it was quite glorious. Since then, we have added on a nice screen porch, and we spend probably 9 months out of the year at this home. And I'm gonna call it a home because we lived there for 12 years. Then we moved to Columbus Junction and bought a second home. We did that because we had 3 kids, as I mentioned, and they went to Columbus Community School Districts. We moved to the house directly across the street from the school so that our kids could participate in after-school activities. I work in Iowa City, Jerry in Muscatine. So it was just hard for us to live at Conesville, down at Edgewater at that time. Our dream, our hope, our plans when we retire were to go back to 2446 Edgewater Road. And I keep saying 2446, it's really now 2440. We don't really know how that happened, but it did during 2008. They changed our address. There were 7 property owners down there that sold out to Muscatine County during that time, the 2008 flood. We did not. We had FEMA, and I think I already mentioned this. We had our flood insurance, and we took care of it. Jerry project managed that. We jumped through all the hoops of the Muscatine Zoning Committee to bring in electrical engineers to make sure that we were doing everything right. So I give you this litany of stuff that we've done, because this cabin is a home that we have owned since 1987. It is our second home, and it is where we want to go to retire. I just turned 60 last year, so retirement is a very, very positive thing in my life right now. And Jerry too, he has broke the 60 barrier, and we are heading that direction. So I bring this because, as you all know, I've heard you say 245th Street Bridge several times. You know, in 1995, the road to G28 was closed down. It was the only other access that we had to our property. You all, not you personally, but this committee made the decision to make this be a dead-end road. We didn't help that decision. 245th is now a dead-end road that didn't used to have to be there. We know that the road since the flood has not been maintained. We know the bridge has not been maintained. Any maintenance that has been done so because people have called and begged and pleaded for this work to come down to be done. We know last year how many 10 truckloads of gravel were delivered, and the road was maintained probably for the first time in a very long time. And this is a level A road, service A road, that the secondary roads committee is required to maintain. 10 years, a decade. This didn't happen. Snow removal didn't happen. We have a vet that lives down there full-time, and his partner, who owns the property, that's Sherry Phillips. I feel like the negligence of that secondary road committee, who is under the direction of the engineer, they have had dereliction of duty. Not necessarily during the new engineer's time, but during the post one, the past one. Nobody took care of the road and the job unless people were begging and pleading for them to come down and do their job. I think that if the bridge is closed, by default, you're gonna make 245th at our sister-in-law's property, Jill Goldsberry, on the west side of the road, a dead-end road. So that's gonna be the next thing. So this it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. It feels like a vicious cycle, especially to us living on 245th. Or needing 245th to access our property. Last month, I believe Dusty Buffington provided a write-up of potential solution, an out-of-the-box solution that could be used for this bridge. It's a solution that has been used in 4 other Iowa counties: Louisa, Washington, Johnson, and Buchanan. In Buchanan County, there are 32 of these solutions implemented right now. There are 3 to be done yet this year. We all, as property owners at Edgewater Road, feel like this at least deserves some attention and a visit that has been offered. Visit has been extended, an invitation for a visit has been extended to come and look at these, see if they're viable. Dusty has spent a significant amount of time working with this individual from Buchanan County to put together this proposal. It's a very low-cost proposal, implemented, working, safe, meets the engineering and safety standards. I think it deserves a look. This could be a solution to many of the Muscatine County bridge issues. And a low-cost one at that. I think that Dusty had got a quote for around $300,000, which is a far cry from the $1.3 million that other companies have offered solutions for. We just really I would say beg and plead for you to look at that solution, see if it's viable. Don't just poo-poo it and listen to some other company that is gonna come in and not only do the evaluation, but implement these bridges. It feels like there might be a little bit of underhandedness when somebody is doing the reviews and then implementing a solution at a cost that is
Wouldn't
significant.
that cut both ways? I mean,
Explain that.
so, guy comes in and says, I can do a bridge, here's how much it will cost you. I mean, if you're having, just, you know, it's a philosophical matter, having a problem with one guy who does the inspections also giving you a cost, then I would think that the same would apply on the other side. One guy's making a proposal and also tells you what it should cost.
Right, well, you're not seeking a proposal right now, so he just offered a proposal. So I mean, he didn't come down and inspect the bridge, he did come down and look at what the problem was.
Right.
So I mean, you all didn't ask for him, you didn't solicit him, so I don't think it's exactly the same. I understand what you're saying, but I don't
No,
feel
it's-
like it's I don't feel like it's the exact same thing.
And just again, obviously I'm not on the committee, but questions that I have keep troubling me and I'm wrestling with. Who all realizes that those are never meant to be year-round or even majority season dwelling facilities?
When we purchased it, nobody told us that. Right now, it's currently zoned as residential.
I struggle with that comment, Nathan, because if I buy a cabin and I wanna live in it 365 days a year, nobody should tell me I shouldn't be able to.
And when we moved there were 8 full-time cabins there, 8 different families that
Right.
resided there.
If I wanna make my cabin my home, it should be mine.
Well, I
No
understand that, but
indication
we
that
do
we
have
could.
laws saying, you know, if you buy a chunk of land, you can't put 12 mobile homes on it. You know, we do have common sense restrictions, but I don't know, what is the legal status, do we know, Eric or Jim, of those parcels down there?
Well, from my understanding of research, the ones that were purchased after the '08 flood were the ones that were eligible, that were considered, by FEMA as full-time dwellings. 2440 would not have been eligible for FEMA buyout, it was not their primary residence at the time, they were residing in an address in Columbus Junction, where they claimed homestead tax credit. That only would have disqualified it from a FEMA buyout. The reconstruction permit and the floodplain development permit from 2008 on 2440 both clearly state elevation and reconstruction of a seasonal recreational cottage. That all properties zoned A1, and unless it was a legally existing full-time dwelling before 1960s, when we adopted ordinances on seasonal recreational cottages, it doesn't automatically mean that you can legally reside there full-time.
So, does that mean, if I'm hearing you right, does that mean unless they were grandfathered in, none of those parcels are legally full-time?
Correct, legal non-conforming uses, but once they're discontinued for 12 months or more, there's no ability to go back and claim full-time dwelling in something that doesn't meet current.
Yeah, and I understand people live there, and I don't think anybody wants to kick anybody out of their house over a zoning regulation. But I'm just trying to get an idea of what is or should have been expected at the time.
Right, so to answer your question, if someone was to come apply for a building permit on any one of those properties now for a full-time dwelling, our zoning regulations would not allow that.
So I saw Ms. Carson, that was your email, I think, where you mentioned there was pillars poured in 2022 on one of the seasonal cottages. That's something that could still be permitted under a seasonal use.
Potentially, yes, I'm not sure which one
Yeah.
would be referred to, but.
Okay.
That would have been Buffington's. But we had flood insurance for 20 years before the flood of '08. FEMA oversees that, and they more than encouraged us to rebuild. I mean, we didn't know what we wanted to do. As she said, we took 4 years. We had to get it cleaned out. We wanted to make sure the mold was gone. We had to work with them. Figured out what was right. Found out that we had increased cost of compliance. FEMA came in, or National Flood Insurance Program via FEMA came in. They gave us all the information that we needed, made all these suggestions. They did not want us to leave. In fact, it was a lot because of their suggestions that we made the decision to rebuild, because they said, no, you got flood insurance, this is what it's for. We need you to go ahead and rebuild this thing, and we did. And you know, we took our time at it. We had a couple floods that slowed things down, and you know, we didn't really get enough money to do it all, so we had to kind of, you know, wait till we had extra money. But you know, no point in time ever that we've owned this have we not been told we couldn't live there year round until he started saying. I don't know, you know, what's changed, but we lived there all those years and nobody ever gave any indication. The assessor's office knew we lived there. Our residence was there.
How do you even control something like that? You stay through Friday and you're not allowed to stay on the weekend? I mean, where the hell do you draw the limit on what night you can stay in your cabin?
Yeah. know, we've always considered it our home. Where we live now is kind of our residence, cause we're, you know, with the kids and everything, but they're all gone now, and we're getting ready to do something different. And, really, we're planning on doing it down there, and I mean, we've paid our taxes, you know, for all the years we first lived there. That bridge, they came and worked on it every year during the summer. They graded our road at least once a month, and once in a while brought down an occasional load of gravel. They didn't have to bring down so much gravel because they took care of it. After '08, it was like, at first the road wasn't being taken care of, and I actually said something to FEMA, and I know they allocated some money to the county to fix the road. And it did get fixed at that point in time. But after that, unless we call and scream, we couldn't even get them to bring a road grader down, and their answer to it was just to keep lowering the weight limit on the bridge. Like, well, then we don't have to do nothing. And it's, and we've watched this go on, we not only watched it, we've documented it.
Sure.
And, you know, we're just looking, we just want a way to get there. We don't need a $1.4 million bridge if a $300,000 bridge will work. And you know, all in all, this could save the county a lot of money. That's why Buchanan's doing it. That's why Wise is doing it, Washington's doing it. Because they don't have the funds to fix all the stuff that needs fixed either.
So and I've been thinking about that a lot, and I appreciate your comments because you know I think finding a solution that works for everybody, if possible, is the best way to do it. Obviously, our engineer has presented us with his opinions, and you know some other engineering opinions about the viability of a railroad bridge. You guys have other thoughts, and I'm no engineer. I can't tell you what's what. But if a railroad bridge were feasible, let's say, you know, in a perfect world, it could be done for $300 to $500. You know, as you pointed out, that's it's been a difficult area to maintain for whatever reason. Is it something? Do you think? And I'm probably putting you on the spot by asking to speak for a bunch of folks, but let's say the county said, we build a bridge, how you guys are suggesting it, or whatever, hire that work done, and then reach an agreement to where that bridge, what it's got, what was the life you guys were saying of the
So this bridge has only been there for
no.
Oh,
The new one. Let's say you built the railroad bridge. Is that a 30, 40? I don't know what it is. Something.
It's like 20 or less.
20. Okay. Well, even 20, whatever. Would it be reasonable to even talk about an agreement whereby the county says we build this bridge, and then that's what we're going to do. That's what the taxpayers will do, and in exchange, that the road is yours. Okay. And you guys maintain that, and basically it becomes a private road. We build that bridge, but then it's all yours. You're all in charge, and then the county's done with it. Is that even something that might be worth talking about?
I mean, I can't speak for everybody else. My personal opinion, no. I mean, I pay my taxes. It's been a Class A gravel road. It gets quite a bit of usage during the summer. There's a lot of people that use it that pay taxes too, but don't necessarily own property down there. I mean, it just seems like every time we turn around, we're sliding a little more out from under us. And as far as engineering stuff, I've heard him talk, and I understand he's new and he's young, but Iowa State University Engineering Department has looked at all those bridges in Buchanan County, and some of them are so good, they don't even have to post them, because the weight limits are so high. And I don't think he can speculate on how long this bridge will last. You need to talk to the real engineers up there that have taken the time to go and.
Well, I'd ask you to have respect. Mr. Horshowski is a real engineer.
Well, I understand, but he hasn't looked at these bridges.
I have. I've looked at the Washington County ones.
Okay.
So
I've spoken.
And those are posted. They have been posted since day one.
I think our job up here is not to second guess engineering questions. I think it's to try and make the best policy decision for the taxpayers and all the residents of the county. And that's what I think we're trying to do. I know we got some difference of opinions, but you were going to talk.
I've spoke to 3 of the 4 county engineers in the 4 counties she's mentioned, starting to be on a regular basis, and they're all pretty strong advocates of it. Hell, in Johnson County, they're still building wooden bridges, which I was surprised to hear. I really think it's a feasible,
paying windows.
responsible, and affordable option that, and at least in this circumstance, at this location, should be considered, and I just think the other viable options, the two that we've been referencing, are not affordable, and they don't benefit the taxpayer, so. I think the railroad bridges are a really strong option. They're not only used in our state. The research I've been doing, they've been using them from Oklahoma to California. They're putting these things everywhere. And what I've been told by these engineers is when it's time to replace them, and I don't know the structure of the bridge, whether it's the pillars underneath, it should be significantly cheaper if that's 30 years, 40 years down the road. I think it'll last. I think these railroad bridges will last, in my opinion, will last way more than 20 years. That everything, all the structure for that will remain adequate. And if they have to replace the top portions of new railroad cars, the cost going in 40 years or 30 years from now would be significantly less than having to replace everything we have to now.
Am I correct, and for whoever can answer this, but I think it's Brian, if a railroad bridge were put in, it would require new pilings?
Yes.
Okay, and,
So that,
yeah, go ahead.
the biggest issues down there with those costs, I mean, I don't know where this $300,000 number come from. If it was referenced to a different bridge up in Buchanan County, but it all comes down to the conditions of where the bridge is being built. I mean, look at the pictures of those guys building those bridges. They have a crane on both sides. How are we gonna get a crane on both sides? We have to build a causeway to get over there. There's a lot of
And that
expense.
requires permitting from
Yes.
DNR?
Yes.
What
And
about-
a lot of those guys are also, they're utilizing old piling. We can't do that. So you're going to have a lot of these costs that those guys just don't have or aren't reporting.
The gentleman in Buchanan County, the engineer up there, that gave us a rough estimate of 300,000 a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I thought I forwarded it to you. He said that's across the finish line, everything needed to build that bridge. Rough estimate. Now, that's not an official one, but a rough estimate.
It's a rough estimate where none of the work was let. We can't do this work. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the personnel.
I know we can't, but
So now it has to go out and
I
contractors.
I think we should think outside the box on it. I think they've got a contractor in Buchanan County that said would be more than welcome to probably take on this project at that $300,000 price tag, rough price tag, and we can have them. We don't have to build every bridge to think out of the box, Brian. I'm sorry, we disagree on this.
I think if we have a
But
contractor.
I think that this is, I think, why that we've recommended we go out and look at the options. I can tell you that any decision that comes out of this board is we're taking on a responsibility for the taxpayer, all taxpayers, not 8 or 9 residents in one area. And I think I personally have no interest in experimental. I don't wanna risk liability for the taxpayer long-term. I'm not interested in that. I would never be on board with that. But I think that it's a good process to go forward, go look at all the options. If we have a contractor out there, we contract all of our bridge work. I don't think we never do any bridge work, so I don't know where that comment even comes from, Danny. It's like, we engineer a bridge, you design it, and I checked with the DOT on these bridges, and the DOT's opinion is they have no opinion. The first contact I made, they knew nothing about them, so that tells me the Iowa State DOT, I don't know where we're not talking together or what. But the comment that the DOT made to me was that this is it has to be designed by a licensed engineer, not by someone else, but a licensed engineer. And I believe as a part of your licensing insurance, Brian, you have to sign off on the viability and you're taking a personal liability as a licensed engineer that this is acceptable. And there's professional standards he's held to that's his livelihood. So I don't think that this board is capable of making those decisions, and I think the process recommended by the county attorney is the right process. Get the right people in, weigh all of the options, cause there are a ton. I mean, alternate design, all kinds of things, and then come back to the board with a recommendation. Because I don't know where to go. cause you know, you have, I've seen all the pictures, I've looked at everything that everybody's been sending, and I haven't seen any area that looks even comparable in the least bit to this. To me, I think you need 9 to 12 rail cars to do this.
I'm told 6.
Well,
6, they're
you
22,000.
you gotta look at the length of the bridge, it's not one rail car long. I haven't seen any that were, I think I saw one where maybe there were 2, but there are pilings in the middle. The other thing is I haven't seen or heard anyone that is under both the Corps of Engineer and the Department of Natural Resource jurisdiction. I've been working on projects under the Corps of Engineers, and it took us 8 months to get a response to a request from an engineering firm. So it's a difficult process, I think. And, you know, I don't know what the right next step is. We gotta take a next step.
I don't think it's as difficult as it needs to be. It sounds.
But you haven't been through it, Danny.
I know it, but there's engineers in all these other counties that are doing it on a regular basis. We don't need to
In a
complicate
Corps
it
of
if they can get it
Engineered
done.
governed waterway?
What's that?
In a Corps of Engineered governed waterway, have they done it?
We have to get it approved. The Corps engineer and the DNR might say no, and this might be out the window right off the bat.
Yeah, that's
But that's why we should have had it on the 5-year plan or figured out how to get it on there so we could say see if they're gonna approve it or they're gonna deny it.
Well, what did you wanna take off?
I don't wanna take anything off. I wanna figure out how to move things around. That's why I talked to the DOT.
We don't have a
Well,
motion.
I don't think we're gonna deliberate this today, I think.
Yeah.
I think the idea of putting the group together, I think we have the right professionals in the group. They need to figure out what the options are and move forward. And I have confidence in Scott and Kurt, they will weigh all the options and talk to people and
And-
figure out what the best solution for everybody is.
And the only thing I would add to that is it's got legal implications. We've had folks hire counsel that have talked to us, and so that I've heard people say, well, now all of a sudden the board's not talking to people. Well, once another lawyer comes in, I'm not saying people don't have a right to have a lawyer, they absolutely do, but that complicates the process.
The only reason I contacted the lawyer, and the only reason I contacted the lawyer was because we requested from him a copy of the recent
I understand.
report that he told Chuck Hausman he couldn't give to him. And I said, that's stupid. Freedom of Information Act says we can see that. I only had my lawyer call and ask the county attorney if we could get a copy of that. And as soon as he sent us one, they released it.
I don't
out
know
on
if
the
yours
internet.
is the only lawyer involved. I've heard that there's more involvement than that.
Well,
So,
that's the
but
only
you got a copy of the report, right?
Yeah, they mailed it to my attorney.
Okay.
Cost me $200. Should've just been out there for free, but hey, I got it.
Well, I mean, I don't know who made that, but certainly any information that we have is public record and we are
Absolutely.
bound by law to provide it, so
Yep.
it's just contact, and I don't know who would have told you they wouldn't give you a copy of a bridge report, but certainly I've seen them. But I don't know that we've seen the bridge report on this bridge, yeah, so it's in our email, we have it, you should have been, I think it was in a board packet actually one week. So it was published and put out there as a board package, so that you had to pay to get that, I feel bad because it's out there. Should not have happened.
I'm gonna just throw this out here because as I've listened to this conversation, I think about this more. How long have there been cottages in that location down there? Does anybody know?
Since 1900.
1900?
When the original bridge was built in 1900, it resided there until 1981. People started using it. It started out, I mean, they farmed down there for a lot of years.
That is exactly my point.
And
Like,
then, you know, it was, of course, back then they didn't have air conditioning and air-conditioned cars.
Right.
People like to go to the river.
because my next question was going to be, why'd they ever build a bridge to begin with? Why did that happen? And my assumption would be, just as you said, and just like it was out here on the Mississippi before the lock and dams were put in, where people actually lived in the islands, actually farmed out there, they lived out there full time. I'm suspect that the same type of situation occurred here. I have no knowledge, but as you just stated, that there were farms down there, and that's what I would guess, and that's the reason that a bridge was ever built to begin with, was so that they were able to have transportation into that farm ground down the bottom where people were actually making a living down in there. Would that be a safe assessment?
Well, I mean, yeah, to some degree, they ran cattle down there.
Sure.
It was cooler, it was closer.
And and I'm willing to bet there were farms and people lived full time down there.
There were no actual farms, there wasn't any ground that was farmed.
There was no actual farms down there?
No farms, just, it started out kinda, some of the original places that were built more like duck hunting shacks and stuff, and then they divided the ground up, I believe it was a Singleton that did it, and then people started building homes. Ours was actually built by a doctor from Washington, Iowa, him and his wife built that, and then later they sold it to a guy in Tonesville. But yeah, it's kinda always been more of a recreational thing. One of the cabins north of me was actually built by a man and his brother, and then they even built one next to it. They're pretty, well, they built the one you were in that Dan Beaman had. But yeah, they've been there a long time, and you know, and the other side of it is, like, I kinda see where you're going with this, like, okay, so it outused its purpose, but why did they rebuild the bridge in 81? Why'd they put a brand new one up in 81?
Well, there was still farm ground down where the Conservancy is on the north side, up until, I don't remember what year that was sold, because I actually toured that property as a potential buyer, back then, and there was actually farm ground down there. They were making hay off of that down there, so there was still actually, farm ground down there that was being, addressed in that fashion, being able to cross that bridge to it. But, my point being is how things have changed to where we are now, from originally building the first bridge to be able to service the people that farmed and lived through that bottom. I don't know how many acres are in that bottom, but probably up and down, 1,500, 2,000 maybe, all the way up to Gidney and down to below the railroad, the old railroad bridge and that down there. So there was a sizable amount done, and and also, things have changed so much in regard to flooding. I'm not saying there wasn't floods back then, but it's the same thing on the Mississippi. You throw these different man-made structures in, as the best example I could use would be in Cedar Rapids, to change the flow and hydraulics of and everything else. Everything is just completely different than what it was in 1900, that somebody decided that it would be beneficial, I'm sure economically, to build a bridge there to get commodities to and from the market. That's my guess. That's all I'm saying. I think the use.
Does that theory of your matter? I mean, I'm sure we got roads and bridges now that serve other purposes than just farmers. So do you walk away from them because they don't serve that any longer? Things change.
But I think you gotta evaluate them.
It only matters in the sense that you have a commodity that people are growing for a livelihood. That's the only difference.
Yeah, well, it's like when we went through looked at the last look at the 5-year plan, right? Which we look at 5, but we have it much more. We have it further out than that, and we have another half a dozen bridges of the same magnitude that are not on the 5-year plan, that are in the same kind of condition. So I think it's just it's a complicated situation. I think you gotta weigh all the options and decide what you're gonna do, but it's time to make a decision on what you're gonna do to move forward.
I mean, I think we hear you. You guys feel screwed. You got a place. You put money, love, time in.
We got a lot of money invested, not just us. I mean,
Yeah,
you
no,
look
I
at the
get you.
people, the whole group of us, just based on what our assessed values are. It's a lot of money. People ain't just gonna sit back and let the rug be pulled out.
It's a financial thing. It's a sentimental thing. It's a trust thing. I get it. So I don't know if that railroad bridge, if we get the DNR and somebody, if that were a theoretical possibility, great. If we could wave a wand and do it, I don't know. I mean, the problem is, what he just said is we've got. I was not here last week, so I apologize. I don't know if you guys were here. We got this big old sucker. This is bridges that didn't make it on the 5-year plan and need to be replaced. Every single one of those yellow boxes. And
Well, they're on the plan, they're just not in the current 5
They need
years.
replacing, but they're not. Yeah, they're not currently on the schedule officially. So they're things we're cognizant of in addition to everything that's on the schedule. So we've got, you know, hard choices to make, and what we do, you know, we're not trying to screw anybody over. And I know just from being a lawyer and telling my clients, no matter what happens and you go into this, you're not going to be happy. No one's going to be happy because no one's going to get everything they want. So what I want to communicate is, you know, we're not, you know, I've seen stuff calling us heartless. Okay. I mean, I get that. I didn't do this job to make friends, which is a good thing. But, you know, we're trying to balance it. And every transaction, every decision we make has to take away from something else. So I just ask you to
Well,
hang on. There's probably going to be disagreement one way or the other with whatever the committee recommends. I'm almost certain of it, but I think everyone's working in good faith under the constraints that they are, and I hope that we can agree on that. You know, I don't think you guys are trying to get something you're not entitled to.
No, we're just, you know, we're just.
It sucks.
Citizens like everybody else, and we look at what, like, you know, look at what they're doing in Buchanan County, and they're doing it because they're in the exact same position as you. They got more bridges than they got money to fix. So they're just trying to think outside the box, and it seems to be working. So
I hope you agree that, by the same token, if their bridges aren't comparable to the situation here, then that's not a good solution. I mean, I don't know that's true or not.
from what I've seen, I think they'd be fine. But yeah,
I mean, I'm no
understand
engineer.
that.
I don't know your training, but that we've got to trust our professionals.
No, I agree with you.
So, you know, I urge the committee to take everything into consideration, but know that no one's going to be happy, unfortunately, with whatever decision comes out of this.
Okay.
I wish that were not the case.
Thank you for your input this morning. Do I have anyone else from the public that would like to address the board? Step to the podium, state your name and address, please.
Thank you. My name's Dan Christopherson. I live at 1731 180th Street at Nichols. The reason I'm here is my daughter-in-law has been here, and I think Scotty's son has been here talking about stop signs at unprotected intersections in gravel roads in Muscatine County. I don't know if they've told you the whole story about my grandson getting hurt in a wreck, where he had to learn to walk and talk and everything again. He got hit at a four-way intersection. He was coming from the east going west, and a semi hit him coming from the south going north. And there's a lot of these intersections on county roads in the state of Iowa, in Muscatine County. The only information, the newest information I could find was from 2014, where there were 211 unprotected intersections in Muscatine County and gravel roads. And I know there's probably more now because they made a lot of the Y intersections into T intersections, and one of them's down by Scotty's house, and there is no stop sign there. But it's a T intersection, and now there's no stop signs, and they did that in other areas. So all we're asking is, we don't want other people to go through the heartache of something like this happening. This is they told this family, they told his daughter, that's Scott Boucher, you probably know him because he worked here. They told his family, his daughter, that Troy would probably never function again. And if he did, they would have to take care of him at home for the rest of his life. Okay? It's a miracle. He's functioning. The day I walked into the emergency room or into intensive care, they had just told Melinda that he was very probably going to be a vegetable, and she was just fell apart like anybody would. And then I walked in the next time, and he was moving his left leg, which he could never move his left side. And all of a sudden, he started moving his left leg. And now he's walking, talking, back to school.
He's a junior in high school, back to school. He still has double vision, so he can't drive. He can see straight with this eye, and the other thing he sees is over here. So if he sees two of Kurt, he sees one here and one here. See what I'm saying? I told him if it was a pretty girl, that'd be okay, 'cause he could see it. So,
He probably appreciated that.
yeah, he just kind of blows me off, you know. But
Dating twins.
it's something that you don't realize you need. You drive through the intersections constantly. I've lived on gravel roads my whole life. You drive through intersections constantly, and you know it's a dangerous intersection. But when you're an old man, you drive 35, and you slow down and you look. Younger people, they just go through it, and a lot of people just fly through them. You know, Kurt's got a very dangerous one west of his house on the county line, on Muscatine and Johnson County line, and you can't see nothing. People grow the corn right up to the corners, you know, and if the wind's blowing, you can't see the dust. You don't know if anybody's coming, you know, and somebody's gonna nail you, and somebody's gonna, you know. As I say, it's a miracle he's alive. And it hurt a lot of people. It didn't just hurt him. It hurt parents, grandparents. It hurt the young man that was driving the semi, his family. You know, it affects everybody. You know, and it's something, I don't know what a stop sign costs. I have no idea what a stop sign costs. It can't be much.
$200.
Huh?
$200.
$200. That ain't much to save a life. That ain't a major expense to save somebody's life. You know, if you got a four-way intersection, you could put up 2 stop signs. You could put up 1 stop sign. You know, that's gonna save somebody's life. You know, if they say speed limits save somebody's life, you know, why don't stop signs save somebody's life? You know, if they don't work on a gravel road, nobody can seem to put them up on a gravel road. Why put them up on a highway? Just let everybody go. You know, do bumper cars, do figure 8, you know, and let them go. But I think that people should be. I wrote a letter to Grassley, and I got it. I got the letter I wrote right here. I don't know if any of you have seen it or not. I will hand it to you, and you can. I'm not going to read it all. I will hand it to you, and then I will have his reply is right behind it. Okay, so you can pass it around. This is the letter I wrote to him. It pretty well explains everything.
Should we make some copies?
And I'm not going to take up much more of your time, but I just want you to, and I know other people have been here telling you the same thing, but we're not going to quit. We're going to come and keep telling you, and hopefully we can get some stop signs put up some different places. He's not the only one that got hurt. Troy's not the only one that got hurt. He was in Omaha. Is that where he was at, Scotty? He was in Omaha, and there was a girl from Williamsburg that the same thing happened to her, and she was not coming back near as fast as Troy was. You know, I asked him to. I always say that, you know, I always told Troy I talked to him when he was unconscious, and hoping he could hear. The doctor said he probably could, but I would sit and talk to him, and I'd say, you gotta come home, and I didn't mean come to the house, I meant come home. You know, you gotta come back. You can't. This can't happen. It shouldn't happen to any of your kids, any of your family. You know, it's something that can be prevented. You know, you can put up a stop sign and save somebody's life. You know, and if it's $200, like Mr. Chick says.
Well, you gotta have a stop ahead sign, which is 200, so.
Okay,
So
sure.
if it was a 4-way intersection, you gotta have 2 ways blocked. It's $800 an intersection, so.
Okay.
And then leave the other side go open. I think it's reasonable to do this. We was gonna try to verify how many were in the county. Brian, have you looked
It's
in?
roughly between 120 and 130.
Yeah, so that's a kind of the number I believe too. I don't think it's quite.
That's
Well,
intersection.
this was 2014 when this is the last thing that we got.
Yes,
you
and
know.
I wasn't around. I don't know how those numbers
You
are
know,
compiled.
there's It tells the state on your policy.
Well, one of the things we found is like, sometimes they count a four-way intersection,
There's
uncontrolled
a
four
map that
times.
shows all of them, you know.
Yes, and it's a little confusing. Some Ys get counted as 3, some Ys get counted as 1.
Yeah.
A T intersection, it's fairly obvious who has to stop. That can get counted as 1.
Yeah, but it's still obvious, they tell you
Well-
drive 55 too, and who does? Who drives 55 down the highway?
Well-
I mean, who drives 70 on the interstate?
My experience is, and I know I've got tens of thousands of miles on gravel roads, and I know we're supposed to yield to the vehicle on the right.
Yep.
But if I'm going down a gravel road, and as I've gotten older and a little wiser, I'm more cautious. But if I'm going down a gravel road and I don't have to stop, my first thought is the other dude has to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people are gonna think that way.
Yeah.
And when you're younger and more, maybe less experienced drivers, they may not be as cautious,
It's like-
and they assume the other guy's gotta
But-
stop, so.
It's just something that sounds to me like it would be a simple fix to keep people from getting killed or hurt ungodly bad, to do stop signs, you know, everywhere. I mean, I'm not just saying, you know, it makes you, you know, it makes you think when somebody in your family, when it happens to somebody in your family, then you think about it, you know, more serious than what you thought about it before. So, that's why I'm here. That's, I don't wanna take up any more of your time, you got more people to talk to.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Actually, it was I've been sitting on this board for a number of years now, and this it really has never been a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
So we actually have talked with the engineer and looked at, cause we didn't even know what our policy was.
Yeah.
What do we do? How do we do
Yeah.
it? And I think Brian is actually out there now looking at how many are there, because there's questions on how the data was even gathered. So
Sure.
we don't know what we even have yet. But I think it's our intention, in talking with the county engineer, to continue to move forward on this
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're one of the things we talked about too is identifying what are the most dangerous ones right away.
Yeah.
You know, we can't drop 1,000 stop signs tomorrow,
No, I
Obviously.
understand that.
but
I understand
we
that,
want to
but-
address the greatest problem areas.
To a
first.
certain point, they're all dangerous. It
Yeah.
depends on who's running through them and how much the roads are used, but you know, all farmers nowadays have semis.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of semis running up and down gravel roads that never used to be, you know, and people drive faster than they ever drove. You know, cars go a lot faster than a 1936 Chevy pickup, you know, that went 30 miles an hour, you know. So it's something that, in my opinion, it needs to be looked at, not just because of my grandson, but that's what made me realize that somebody should speak up
Well, I
and
think
say
it's-
something and get other people thinking about it, you know, and just, that's all I gotta say about it, you know. I just want everybody to be aware, and it's not, Vince, we come every week, it's not harassment, I'm just wanna tell you,
Hey, you're right.
you know,
No,
so,
Thank you for your comment.
Thanks,
that's
Dan.
it. Thanks for your time.
Do I have anyone else from the public that would wish to address the board at this time? Seeing no one come forward, it is 9:58, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.